In today's video, we're going to see one of the most embarrassing things to happen in Canadian foreign policy history, a story that the media is actively trying to hide. Then some shocking updates on Canada's immigration system, and finally about why Pierre winning his recent by-election is a lot more important than what everybody thinks. As always, in all these videos, I show you what everybody's saying and I deliver the news that actually matters.
Canada will always stand in solidarity with Ukraine. Canada, under my predecessor, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, has become the largest per capita contributor of financial aid to Ukraine. Today, I come here with the honor of leading Canada's new government. I commit that Canada will remain by Ukraine's side in your fight for independence, sovereignty, and freedom. That's why when you, Mr. President, joined the G7 summit this past June in Canada, we joined others in enacting new sanctions against thousands of Russian entities and hundreds of Russia's foreign enablers of this brutal war. While we weaken Russia, we work to strengthen Ukraine. At that same G7, Canada pledged an additional $2 billion in military assistance. And today I'm proud to announce that over $1 billion of that support will be used to strengthen your arsenal with urgently needed drones, ammunition, armored vehicles, material that will arrive next month.
Announcing an additional $2 billion worth of material to be delivered to Ukraine as soon as possible, Prime Minister Mark Carney has done quite literally what no other country has, and that is providing $20 billion of your tax money to a conflict that your voice doesn't even matter in. And before I show you why your voice, your vote, and your perspective quite literally means nothing to the Carney government, I want to explain something very quickly. Canada is currently in a budget crisis during a time when the government has sat physically in Parliament for a total of 20 days. I'm not joking. As per the House of Commons sitting calendar for 2025, Mark Carney and his Parliament has only been physically in Parliament for 20 days for all of 2025 so far. That means that your tax dollars have been moved unilaterally offshore to one of the most corrupt countries in the world without even having a parliamentary hearing about it. All during a time when Canada's healthcare system, arts and culture system, and even national defense budgets, excluding the military, but unfortunately including intelligence services, are all experiencing budget cuts and budget deficits. Now you might be asking, why? Is Mark Carney using this as some type of political leverage that can maybe actually benefit you and I in the not so distant future? Well, this next video is gonna throw a wrecking ball in that theory.
President Putin today, we're gonna call President Putin right after this meeting. I'm sure we're going to have a solid meeting, good meeting, maybe a great meeting, and we're going to try and work out a trilat after that and see if we can get it finished, put this to sleep, because this is not since the Second World War has there been anything like this. So I'm honored to welcome NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who's a great gentleman, great political leader in Europe generally, but now he's the NATO Secretary General, and you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much, Mark. Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom, our friend and my friend, and doing really well, and people like him a lot. We all like him. Everyone knows President Macron of France, who's been with me from the beginning, one of the first people I met as a foreign dignitary, and I liked him from day one. And I like him even more now. That's pretty good. That's unusual. That's a pretty unusual thing. Prime Minister Meloni of Italy, who's a really great leader and an inspiration over there. She's served now, even though she's a very young person, she's served there for a long period of time relative to others. They don't last very long. You've lasted a long time. You're going to be there a long time. Chancellor Merz of Germany, who is a very strong person and a very strong leader and very highly respected in Germany. And he's my friend, and it's an honor to have him as my friend. Thank you very much. Very good. You look great with your tan.
If you didn't know, this video is about world leaders discussing Ukraine's future, especially after the historic Alaska summit between President Trump and President Putin. And every single one of those leaders that are sitting there are there not because they supported Ukraine, but because the leader of the most powerful country in history, which is President Trump, has deemed those leaders relevant enough. Again, it's not because of their support to Ukraine. And why do I say that? Because none of those leaders' support even compares to Canada's. The top 3 supporters of Ukraine, excluding the US, is literally Germany, UK, and Canada. And by the way, that chart isn't even including the $1.5 billion that was given earlier this year, and it's not including the $2 billion that was just announced a couple days ago. This entire total would put us at second place for support to Ukraine. France, who barely even offered any support, was somehow invited to this meeting, whereas our prime minister, who gave over $20 billion of our money, was not even included. Oh, and by the way, the $2 billion we just announced, you know what we got in return for that? This historic photo. Canada sending over $20 billion of your tax money to a cause that world leaders don't even include us in is literally the reason why people are saying Mark Carney's foreign policy is a joke. Instead of making Canada a global leader, especially with an investment of this size, Canada has remained a joke in the international theater. And you know what else is becoming a sad and unfortunately an even bigger joke? Canada's immigration system. Because currently, in just the first 4 months of 2025, over 817,000 immigrants were taken in Canada, where almost half of which were just from India. Now, before anybody says that I am anti-immigrant or racist or whatever, I'm just going to stop you right there. Because the problem in Canada is not immigrants. It's too many immigrants all in one go. Me and my family immigrated to Canada in the early 2000s. We immediately assimilated, opened businesses that employed Canadian-born Canadians, and attended Canadian education systems, which allowed us to end up getting higher paying and higher position jobs. The amount of tax dollars and cultural contribution that me and my family has done for Canada is incalculable. And this story is very similar to many immigrants who came when Canada's immigration system was actually working. Now is a completely different story. A chunk, not all, but still a significant chunk of the immigrants coming to this country are now looking for a quick buck either through legal or illegal means. Because just in 2025 alone, there are almost 5 million temporary residencies expiring. Let's just say 1% of these 5 million are criminals with pretty bad intentions. That means that over 50,000 potential criminals have just been added to the already existing native-born criminal population in Canada. And a country only has 70,000 police officers as of 2023. This number is likely 80 to 85. Still nothing compared to the amount of criminals that are in this country. Again, I want to make this perfectly clear. Obviously, it's not the immigrants' fault, and you might actually disagree with what I'm about to say, but even the bad-intentioned criminal ones are actually victims to a system that has been absolutely shattered by a liberal ideology that has gripped this nation for the past 10 years, if not more. But there is hope. And lots of it, because true Canadian conservative leadership is likely on its way. With Pierre winning his recent riding, he has shown a change in tone that honestly should have been there before the major election that took place earlier this year. But hey, better late than never. In a recent speech, he was actually famous for talking about negative migration, like in this interview with the lovely Jasmine Lane.
So Carney is not better than Trudeau, he's worse. So the solution is that we have to bring down our population over the next several years, with more people leaving than coming. Those who are here on visas that expire, who aren't eligible for permanency, need to go, and if they don't agree, then they have to be deported. We need to track down those 600 criminals, kick them out of Canada. We need a firm rule that anyone who commits any crime while they're here as a visitor will be permanently ineligible to be an immigrant to Canada and will have to go home. We need to massively cut back on temporary foreign workers, international students, and stop the false and phony asylum claimants. And in doing that, we can bring the population down over the next few years while housing, healthcare, and jobs catch up.
This wouldn't have happened if he was still in Carleton. His base and his team, unfortunately, needed this major loss so that they can wake up and choose a common sense and true reality as their talking points. In the past, he would actually not try to talk about negative migration. He would even avoid certain subjects that are a reality that we're all experiencing today. But now he is using all of these as his main talking points because that's what's on top of mind for every common sense Canadian in this country. This is not a discussion of left versus right. This is a discussion of who has most access to common sense and reality that everybody is facing today. If he lost the election but kept his Carleton seat, the semi-liberal people of Carleton might have actually still pressured Pierre to maintain his talking points so he wouldn't lose that base. But now in Battle River, Pierre now has a boost and a strong foundation of conservative followers who will back anything that he says that helps Canada come back to common sense. So I want you to always keep in mind, future is bright. Because in the next video, I'm going to go over his major changes, which includes his staff, his advisors, and everything you need to know about him. So subscribe so you don't miss out on tomorrow's news.